The night I caught my wife with her boss started with crayons and apple slices. Our twin daughters, Lily and Grace, were at the kitchen table, giggling and drawing princesses. I had come home early, promotion letter in my bag, heart full. I planned a surprise dinner for Emma and the girls. Nothing fancy, just something to mark a new chapter. I thought we were still writing that chapter together. Instead, I opened the front door and heard voices coming from the dining room. Not just voices, laughter. Flirty. Too close. Then I saw them. Emma stood near the window, blouse half untucked, lipstick slightly smudged. Across from her stood a man in a navy suit, sleeves rolled up, glass of wine in hand. Her boss, Edward. We locked eyes for a moment. No one moved. You could have heard the clock ticking. He didn't say a word. Neither did she. They both looked like high school kids who'd just been caught sneaking around behind the gym. It wasn't rage that hit me, it was clarity. A quiet, freezing kind of clarity. I turned toward the kitchen, where Lily was coloring a unicorn with a green crayon. "Daddy, I made this for you," she said, beaming. Grace held up her own paper. "Me too," I smiled. Took both pictures with shaky hands. "These are beautiful," I whispered. Then I looked back at Emma, still frozen. "We'll talk after they're asleep." She nodded once. That night was the longest bedtime in history. The girls asked for extra stories, extra hugs. I gave them all. I needed every second to stay calm. When I came back downstairs, Emma was already waiting in the living room, wine glass in hand, calm, like she was about to deliver a speech. "I need to say something," she started. "Please let me finish." I said nothing. "I know what you saw, looked bad. But I want to be honest with you. I've been feeling disconnected. Not just from you. From myself. And it's not just about Edward." Oh, she used his name. That made it real. "I've done a lot of thinking, soul-searching, and I've realized I've changed. I'm not the same person I was when we got married. And I don't think you want me to be." "What is this?" I asked quietly. "It's growth. Self-discovery. I've been learning things. Things about relationships. About power dynamics. About emotional authenticity." It sounded like a speech from a self-help podcast. I waited for her to say what she really meant. "I need freedom," she finally said. "Time to explore who I am. Not just as a mom or wife, but as a woman. I still love you. I still want to be your partner. But I also need to experience other connections. Deep ones." She was talking slowly, like she was worried I'd break if she said it too fast. "You want an open marriage?" I asked, stunned. "I want a temporary shift. Just until I find what's missing." I stared at her for a long time. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything. I just sat back and let it settle in. Because in that moment, I realized she'd been planning this. This wasn't some impulse after a glass of wine. This was rehearsed. She'd probably practiced it in front of the mirror. "What about the girls?" I asked. "They'll be fine," she said too quickly. "They're young. They don't need to know everything." That was the part that chilled me most. How easily she brushed off the two people who loved her unconditionally, who looked up to her like she hung the moon. I slept in the guest room that night, alone, cold, the ceiling fan ticking like a clock counting down something I couldn't name. And for the first time since I married her, I didn't recognize the woman down the hall. I thought I'd seen the worst of it the night Emma asked for freedom. I hadn't. A few mornings later, while the girls were eating cereal and watching cartoons, Emma casually dropped this. "I'm going to be gone this weekend. There's a retreat upstate. Women only. It's called a reset experience. Something Vanessa's hosting." "Vanessa?" I asked, pretending I had no idea who that was. "Oh, just a friend from work," she said, way too quickly. "She's incredible. You'd love her." I wouldn't. Not once I found out who she really was. Vanessa Blake wasn't a therapist. She wasn't a coach. She wasn't even married. She was a divorced ex-executive turned self-help influencer who built her brand on tearing down traditional relationships and rebuilding them with one-sided rules. Emma didn't tell me this. I found out the same way any husband does when his gut says something's off. I Googled her. There she was, hundreds of filtered Instagram posts, videos from lakeside retreats, quotes like, "Your pleasure is your power," and "Marriage should never be a cage unless you're holding the key." And in the comments, dozens of women, many using fake names, bragging about reprogramming their husbands and rediscovering freedom between the sheets with others. I didn't even need to ask Emma what kind of retreat this was. I already knew. When she returned Sunday night, she was glowing, peaceful, like someone who had been baptized in delusion, and she didn't even try to hide it. "That weekend changed me," she said while folding laundry. "It made me realize I've been playing small my entire adult life." I bit my tongue. Lily was upstairs. Grace was asleep on the couch. That's when Emma added, "Vanessa says there's no point in pretending anymore. This is who I am now. Who she is now." I didn't recognize this person. She talked like she joined a cult but smiled like it was enlightenment. And I'd be lying if I said it didn't scare me. The next day at work, I got an email. No subject line. No greeting. Just a single link and a message. "You didn't hear it from me." I clicked. It was a voice recording. Women talking. Laughing. I recognized Emma's voice instantly. "She still has no clue," she said. "Poor Ryan still thinks this is about emotions. He doesn't know Vanessa's already got me prepping for phase 2. "What's phase 2? Someone asked. "Total surrender," Emma replied. "He gives up bedroom rights. I move him to the guest room permanently. We share the house, the girls, but I take full autonomy. Vanessa says it takes 6 weeks to shift the dynamic." Laughter. "She ever talk about taking custody?" Another voice asked. "Oh yeah," Emma said casually. "If he fights it, I've got stuff lined up. Screenshots, texts I can twist. Vanessa knows a family lawyer who works with a bunch of the women. She'll make him look like the paranoid control freak." The file ended. I sat frozen at my desk. It wasn't the cheating anymore. It wasn't the betrayal. It was that she was strategizing, rehearsing my downfall like a corporate takeover. And she was weaponizing the kids. I started saving everything. Every text. Every calendar invite. Every girls' night out that was actually a date with Edward, her boss. I even set up a recording app that captured the audio of phone calls she took in the next room when she thought I wasn't listening. She was deeper in this movement than I'd imagined. One night, I overheard her talking to Vanessa again. "You think he'll eventually give in?" Emma asked. "Oh, honey," Vanessa said. "Once you cut him off completely, he'll start begging. Then you make the begging part of the game. That's how you break the old version of him. Then you rebuild him into something useful." I felt sick. And then Emma asked a question I wasn't ready for. What if I want my boss to meet the girls?" I stopped breathing. The night I heard her ask if her boss could meet our daughters, something inside me snapped. It wasn't rage. It was more like a switch flipping off. Like the part of me that still held on to the idea that this was salvageable just shut down completely. This wasn't confusion. It was a campaign. And my daughters were just chess pieces in a game I hadn't agreed to play. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. Not because I doubted what I heard, but because I knew what was coming. She was building a case, planning to paint me as unstable. I had to be airtight, clean, focused, and quiet. So I started gathering everything. I installed a keystroke tracker on the home computer, created backups of her cloud drives, even synced her phone's deleted media folder to my private account. Every photo, every video, every message, even the ones she thought were gone. That's when I found the hidden folder. It was tucked into a cloud storage drive under a bland name, Project L. For Lily? For love? I still don't know. Inside were candid pictures of our daughters, mixed in with lingerie selfies, photos of her and Edward in bed, even one of them on vacation. A vacation she told me was a solo retreat upstate. The date stamp? It was our daughter's birthday weekend. While I had baked a cake and stayed up decorating the kitchen with streamers, she had been in a hotel room with him. There was even a video clip of her whispering, "He still thinks I'm at the lake house." What a sweet idiot. I stared at that video for a long time. She didn't just lie. She didn't just cheat. She mocked me while doing it. But here's the thing. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I started smiling. Because now I had everything I needed. All I had to do was wait. That week, she told me she wanted to start restructuring the household. I think it's time we had separate sleeping spaces, she said over dinner, cutting the girls' sandwiches like nothing was wrong. It'll help us emotionally reset. I just nodded. If that's what you need. Also, she added, I'd appreciate it if you didn't interfere with my personal time moving forward. It's not healthy for either of us. I kept nodding. I let her believe she was in control. That weekend, I told her I was taking the girls to visit my mother. Emma barely reacted. She kissed the twins, told them to behave, and went back to texting, probably Edward. What she didn't know was that I had a full appointment with my lawyer, complete with files, audio, images, dates. I had a digital timeline so clean it could have been entered into a courtroom that day. We spent the next week apart, Emma claiming space, me quietly preparing. Then I saw it. She posted a picture on her private Instagram, one I wasn't supposed to see. It showed her in our living room, Edward standing in the background, blurry but recognizable. The caption, Reclaiming Your Sanctuary. Step 1, Eliminate Old Energy. That was my house. That was my daughter's home. He was in my space, on my furniture, breathing the air I paid for. I called my lawyer that night. It's time, I said. Everything goes into motion. Every file, every image, every witness. And I want the custody paperwork drafted by Thursday. He paused, then said, You sure about the public part? I want the world to know, I replied. Let her explain it when the cameras are rolling. He hesitated again, then said, Then let's make it unforgettable. I had one final step. Emma's company hosted an annual charity event. Black tie, city hotel, press coverage, the works. Edward would be there. His wife too. Emma was giving the welcome speech. Perfect. I called in one last favor. And just as she stepped up to the mic, smiling like a starlet, the projector screen lit up, not with sponsor logos, but with footage. Her, Edward, hotel bed. Same weekend as the twins' birthday. The room froze. She stood there stunned, stammering, and I stood in the back, arms crossed, like I was just as confused as everyone else. The silence in that ballroom was louder than any screaming match we'd ever had. Emma's face turned a shade I'd never seen before, like all the blood had drained out of her in 1 second. The video continued playing, showing her and Edward in a hotel suite, laughing, tangled up in each other. It was all there. Nothing graphic, but just enough to make every person in that room understand exactly what was going on. I scanned the crowd. Edward's wife was frozen in her seat. The company CEO looked like he'd swallowed a fork. Phones were already being raised. Whispers turned into gasps. Glasses clinked against the floor. And Emma? She blinked a few times. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. A short, shaky laugh, like she was trying to play it off. We seem to be having a technical issue, she said into the mic, but no one bought it. She stepped down, and I quietly slipped out the back before anyone saw me leave. That part was over. Now it was her turn to explain everything. Publicly, professionally, socially. By the next morning, the video had already been clipped, shared, and uploaded. A local news blog posted the story within 24 hours. They didn't name names, but it wasn't hard for anyone in her industry to figure it out. Especially not after Edward's wife filed for divorce the following day and named Emma in the paperwork. Emma's office? Shut her out immediately. Suspension pending internal review. Edward resigned before HR could even hand him a formal reprimand. But the part that hit hardest came later that week. I got a call from Emma. I almost didn't answer. She sounded small. That confident, untouchable tone was gone. I wanted to talk. About the girls, she said. They're fine, I said flatly. Can we figure this out privately? It's already filed, I told her. I have a temporary custody order in place. You'll be served the final packet this week. Silence. Ryan, she said quietly. I know you're angry. Angry, I repeated. No, angry was weeks ago. Right now, I'm focused. She didn't call again after that. But her friend Vanessa did. That one shocked me. She showed up at my workplace, uninvited, and waited outside the parking lot like she was some kind of savior. Dressed in one of those perfectly curated, empowered woman outfits, all white blazer and fake warmth. Ryan, she said, smiling too big, can I speak with you for just a minute? No, I said without stopping. Ryan, this isn't healthy, she called out. You're weaponizing pain instead of processing it. I stopped walking, turned to her. You told my wife to bring strange men into our home. You encouraged her to document me, manipulate me, alienate me from my own daughters. You told her to call the guest room the obedience suite. And now you want to talk about healthy. Her smile faltered, but she kept it together. You're not seeing the big picture. No, Vanessa, I said. I see it perfectly, and so will a judge. I walked away. That night, I sat with Lily and Grace on the couch, eating popcorn and watching a cartoon. They leaned on me like nothing in their world had changed. And for now, that was true, because I hadn't let it change for them. But the next day, I found out Emma had hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, Vanessa's connection. The one that worked with a bunch of the women. It got worse. That lawyer immediately filed an emergency motion accusing me of controlling behavior, emotional manipulation, and creating an unsafe psychological environment for the girls, based entirely on entries from Emma's healing journal, which, of course, Vanessa helped her write. And then I got a call from my own lawyer. There's a wrinkle, he said. We need to talk in person. The moment my lawyer closed the door behind me, I knew something was wrong. He didn't sit. Just stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out like he was rehearsing bad news. Ryan, the journal she submitted, it's detailed, dated, emotional. If someone didn't know the truth, it paints a very different picture of you. He handed me a thick folder. I flipped through the pages. There were entries going back nearly a year. Things I supposedly said. Things I supposedly did. One line stopped me cold. Tonight, he yelled so loudly, the girls cried themselves to sleep. I locked the door and held them while he stormed outside. That never happened. I'd never raised my voice to my kids. Not once. Another entry claimed I monitored her phone like a prison guard and refused her access to therapy. Ironically, the only thing I ever denied her was more weekends alone with her so-called empowerment coach. My jaw tightened as I kept flipping. She documented all of this? I asked. That's the thing, my lawyer said. It's not her handwriting. At least not all of it. There are style inconsistencies, tonal shifts. It's almost like parts of it were coached. Vanessa, I muttered. I can't prove it, but yeah, that's my guess. What does this mean for custody? It means the judge will take it seriously. And if they believe even half of it, you could lose temporary custody pending a full psych evaluation. I didn't say anything for a long time. Can I fight it? I asked finally. He nodded. We'll need testimony, witnesses, documentation to refute everything. If even one of the entries is provably false, it weakens the rest. So I got to work. I contacted Lily's preschool teacher. She wrote a letter about how happy and secure both girls seemed, how they never showed signs of distress at home. I had a pediatrician confirm there were never any signs of trauma or emotional regression. But it was the home assistant that helped most. Emma had installed a smart home system months ago, one that logged activity. Doors opening, alarms disarmed, thermostat changes, even audio commands. And one entry stood out. The night she claimed I stormed outside screaming, the logs showed I turned off the lights at 9:03 p.m. and locked the door from the inside. There were no raised voices, no movement until 7:12 a.m. the next morning. She lied, and I had the data to prove it. We prepped everything for court. But before we got there, something unexpected happened. Her lawyer filed a request to postpone. At first, I assumed they were scrambling, that maybe the evidence had scared them off. But then a letter arrived. From the state bar. Vanessa's lawyer, Emma's new legal shield, was under investigation for ethical misconduct. Apparently, he'd been involved in several similar cases where women had submitted coached or fabricated healing journals as evidence. And this time, someone tipped off the board. I didn't do it, but I had a pretty good idea who did. Rachel, the same coworker who sent me the original Dropbox link. She'd stayed silent since then. But that afternoon, I got another anonymous message. She tried to ruin you, but I couldn't stay quiet anymore. My lawyer was thrilled. This puts us back in control, he said. You stay calm, stay silent, and keep the girls close. We ride this wave. But Emma wasn't done. 3 days later, she showed up at my door. Not with an apology. With a proposition. I think we should reconsider shared custody, she said, standing on the porch like she was dropping off a casserole. Because your plan fell apart? I asked. She blinked. Because this is hard on the girls. No, you're trying to save face. I'm trying to find a middle ground. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me so the girls wouldn't hear. You handed me a loaded gun and dared me to pull the trigger. You were never looking for peace, Emma. You wanted control. And now that you've lost it, you're pivoting. I didn't expect it to get this far. You didn't expect to lose. Her face dropped for a second. Then she smiled. Not warmly. Calculated. You're not going to win everything, Ryan. You know that, right? Emma stood there, holding that smug little smirk like it was armor. You're not going to win everything, Ryan, she repeated. You know that, right? I didn't respond. I just let the silence do the talking. After a moment, she softened her tone. We can avoid court. You can have the girls during the week. I'll take them weekends. No more fighting. No more dragging our personal lives through the mud. It was almost convincing, if I hadn't just watched her try to destroy me with a fake journal. I stepped back. Tell your lawyer to send it in writing, I said, and shut the door. That weekend, I sat on the floor with Lily and Grace building Lego castles. It hit me how close I had come to losing all of it, because I played by the rules while she rewrote them. Sunday night, I received a court alert. Emma's legal team had officially dropped the emergency custody motion. Felt like winning a war, but something didn't sit right. Emma had never backed down without another angle in her pocket. Turns out I was right. The following Friday, I got a call from a local journalist. She asked for comment on a personal essay submitted to her publication, written by none other than Emma. It's titled "My Husband Tried to Destroy Me for Wanting Freedom," the journalist said. She describes emotional neglect, public shaming, weaponized fatherhood. She doesn't name you. But, well, it's not hard to connect the dots. I laughed. Actually laughed. Let me guess. She left out the affair with her married boss and the part where she tried to replace me with a cult? The journalist hesitated. I hadn't seen any mention of that. Of course not, I said. Thanks for the heads up. I hung up and forwarded the call to my lawyer. Thought we were done, I said. He sighed. With Emma? You'll never be done. Not until she decides she can't win, even in public opinion. He wasn't wrong. The article went live Monday morning. It didn't make front page, but it was enough. Local Facebook groups, online forums, even a parenting subreddit picked it up. And the comments were split right down the middle. Some people praised her for her bravery. Others tore it apart line by line, pointing out the contradictions, the tone shifts, the holes. My personal favorite. This reads like a monologue from a bad streaming series. But what Emma didn't count on was the response from her own camp. Several women who had followed Vanessa started distancing themselves. A few even came forward anonymously, claiming they had also been encouraged to write fake journals, push for full custody, and seduce coworkers as a form of female reclamation. Someone leaked screenshots from the Telegram group. A few of Emma's old posts were included. One in particular went viral. My husband thinks I'm on a path to healing. He doesn't realize I'm preparing him for replacement. And just like that, the public tide turned. Emma locked her accounts. Vanessa went offline entirely. And the local media, suddenly cautious, removed Emma's article under editorial review. It was like watching a dam crack after weeks of slow pressure. But then came the message I didn't expect. It was from Edward's wife. She wanted to meet. We sat at a diner on the edge of town. She looked exhausted, but composed. A woman who'd been betrayed and then watched the whole mess get televised. "I just want to thank you," she said. "For what?" I asked. "For handling this the way you did. Quiet, clean, strategic." "You mean instead of torching the house?" She smiled weakly. "Exactly." Then she slid a folder across the table. "What's this?" Screenshots, emails, voice notes. Edward and Emma were still talking, planning to meet again, even after the fallout. "Thought you might want it for court." I opened it slowly. Inside were messages from just 3 days ago. Emma had asked Edward if he was ready to start over once the dust settles. So that's what her shared custody pitch was about. It was a setup. She hadn't given up on him. And she hadn't given up on trying to win the girls back through manipulation. When I got home from the diner, I didn't say a word to the girls. I just sat with them on the couch while a cartoon played in the background. Lily curled up against my side. Grace climbed into my lap. They were safe, happy, and completely unaware their mom had tried, again, to trade their father in for a man who no longer even had a job. The next day, I sent the new folder to my lawyer. He didn't even call back. Just replied, "We're going scorched earth now. This ends." But before the next court hearing, something strange happened. Emma went quiet. No calls. No emails. Not even a passive-aggressive message through mutual friends. She stopped posting. Deleted every account. Even Vanessa disappeared. No new podcasts, no live streams, no Instagram updates from lavender-scented patios. It was like they'd both been unplugged. At first, I figured she was just retreating. Wounded ego. A temporary retreat before her next play. But then Grace came home from school with something odd in her backpack. A flyer. Handwritten. "Mommy's Meditation Circle. Find your center through peace and power. All women welcome." There was a phone number scrawled on the bottom. I didn't recognize it, but Grace said Emma had handed it to one of the other moms at pickup. She was starting her own group, her own movement. I didn't say anything to Grace, just smiled and tucked it away when she wasn't looking. But my blood ran cold. She wasn't giving up. She was going solo. And she was trying to recruit other mothers now, people in my daughter's school. That meant new exposure, new influence, and new risk to Lily and Grace's environment. I called my lawyer again. "She's trying to rebuild the FemFreedom model under her own brand," I said. He sighed. "Then we file for sole custody permanently. Not temporary, not shared. We bring everything." The hearing was scheduled 2 weeks later. The night before it, I couldn't sleep. I walked past the girls' room, just watching them breathe, tucked in under their matching blankets. Their drawings still covered the walls, castles, stick figure families, scribbled stars. All I could think about was how close we had come to losing all of this. Not just to a divorce, but to a philosophy, a lie. The courtroom wasn't flashy. No press, no public drama, just lawyers, a tired judge, and a stack of evidence that read like a novel no one wanted to finish. Emma showed up alone. No lawyer, just a notepad and a pale face. She didn't speak much. Her tone was flat, defensive. When asked about the journal, she said it was emotional expression, not fact. When asked about the video, she said, "We were separated emotionally, even if not legally." And when asked about the meditation circle, "It's not affiliated with anything," she mumbled. "Just women supporting each other." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Do these women include current parents at your children's school?" Emma didn't answer. By the end of the hearing, the ruling was simple. I was granted full physical custody and primary legal decision-making. She could request supervised visitation, pending evaluation. No overnight stays, no unmonitored weekends, just visits. With conditions. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just stood, nodded once, and walked out of the courtroom without saying a word. It was over, or so I thought. A week later, Grace asked a question at bedtime. "Daddy, why did Mommy give my friend's mom a box with a crystal in it?" I froze. What box? It was in a pretty bag. She said it was for energy balancing. It had a card inside too. I tried not to show my reaction. What kind of card? Grace shrugged. I don't know. I think it had a little drawing on it. Like a symbol. I kissed her forehead, tucked her in, and walked straight to my office. The next day, I went to the school drop-off line myself. Sure enough, I spotted one of the other moms holding the exact same pale gray gift bag. Emma was still recruiting. I watched that mom tuck the gray bag into her passenger seat and drive off like it was nothing. Just another school day. Just another little gift from another parent. But I knew better now. Emma wasn't moving on. She was evolving the strategy. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I just went back home, pulled out my notebook, and started tracking names, parents, dates, drop-off times. I started connecting the dots between the moms she had casual chats with, the ones she stood next to too long, smiled too brightly at, the ones who now seemed more distant toward me. She wasn't just rebuilding her movement. She was starting it inside the school community. That night, I received another anonymous message. This time, it wasn't from Rachel. It was from someone I didn't recognize. You don't know me, but I was part of Vanessa's old circle. Your ex-wife is trying to create a new one. She calls it the Mother Flame. She's using meditation and parenting workshops to mask it. Just like before. You need to be careful. Attached was a screenshot of a group chat. There was Emma, her name now saved as Flamekeeper, talking about emotional detachment from paternal energy and realigning childhood development with feminine independence. One line burned itself into my brain. It's not about raising daughters who obey. It's about raising daughters who choose whose voices they hear. She was talking about my daughters. And then, further down, eventually, if Ryan pushes back, we may need to involve school staff. Reframe the narrative. We've done it before. I called my lawyer again. This is beyond family court, I told him. She's targeting our daughter's school. I need to know if this can become criminal. He started asking questions I didn't want to answer yet. Is there any indication she's teaching anything illegal? Has she violated the custody agreement directly? Has any other parent complained formally? Not yet, but it was coming. So I decided to strike first, quietly. I scheduled a private meeting with the school principal. I came armed with the printouts, the screenshots, and the flyer Grace had brought home weeks earlier. I explained everything, how this meditation circle was actually a recruitment tactic, how it linked back to a movement that encouraged manipulation and marital sabotage, how my ex-wife had already attempted to rewrite custody by force. To her credit, the principal didn't brush it off. We've had a few odd interactions, she admitted. Some parents have voiced concerns. One said she was offered a spiritual cleansing during PDA night. She's running a social experiment, I said, and she's doing it through the kids. The principal promised to escalate it to the school board and to flag any further contact between Emma and other families. But she also made one thing clear. If this continues, we may have to limit her access to the campus entirely. I drove home that afternoon feeling lighter, and then I saw the envelope. It was on my porch. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a note in handwriting I recognized immediately. Emma's. You can cut me out of your life. You can turn the girls against me. But this story doesn't end with a judge's decision. I'm not going away, Ryan. I'm just becoming harder to see. I stared at the paper for a long time. She wasn't threatening me. She was promising that she'd outlast me, that she'd just go underground until I let my guard down again. And I realized something chilling. This wasn't about custody anymore. This was about ideology. Emma didn't just want time with the girls. She wanted influence, legacy. She wanted to turn them into mirrors of her own twisted version of empowerment. And I was the only wall between her and that future. That night, after I put the girls to bed, I sat in the dark living room just listening. Not to music, not to a show, to my own thoughts, which lately had started to feel like warnings. Emma wasn't just playing the long game. She was rewriting the rules as she went. No matter how many court wins I stacked, how many pages of proof I submitted, She found new ways to push herself back into the story. And now she was using Lily and Grace's school as the next stage. The following Monday, I got a call from the school principal again. "We had an incident today," she said. "Emma showed up during recess, unscheduled. She stayed outside the fence, technically off campus, but she called out to the girls." "What did they do?" "They ran to her. Security had to step in." I felt my chest tighten. "She didn't take them, Ryan. She didn't even try. But she made a scene. She shouted something about you keeping them hostage. Other parents were there. Staff too. It's been reported, and we've filed for a no trespass order. You'll get a copy." I hung up and immediately checked our security cams at home. Nothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she was nearby. Watching. Waiting. The next few days passed quietly. Emma didn't call. Didn't show up again. But Grace started acting out. She refused to go to bed one night, sobbing that Mommy said Daddy's stealing us away. I knelt down, looked her in the eye, and asked, "When did Mommy tell you that?" She looked confused. "Not in person. In the little box with the purple light." Took me a second to realize what she meant. A voice message. From a toy with Bluetooth. I tore through the toy bin until I found it. An old bear with a glowing heart that played lullabies. It was one of the ones Emma had given them years ago. I never thought twice about it. I held down the button, and sure enough, her voice played through the speaker. "Remember, girls, no matter what Daddy says, you always have a choice. Just close your eyes and listen to your heart. And your Mommy." My hands were shaking. She'd hacked their toys. That night I gathered every smart toy, every stuffed animal with a speaker, every kid's smartwatch. Boxed them all up and put them in the garage. I replaced them with simple things. Books, art, things that couldn't be programmed. But I knew I was losing ground. This wasn't custody anymore. It wasn't about who picked them up from school or who got to take them to gymnastics. This was psychological warfare. And I wasn't about to let my daughters become pawns in someone else's ideology. So I made the call. Not to my lawyer. To a reporter. Not the local blog that flinched when Emma played victim. A real journalist. One who'd already been digging into the FemFreedom fallout, who had files on Vanessa Blake, who had been collecting first-hand accounts of women manipulated into destroying their families. He answered on the second ring. "Mr. Walker," he said, "been hoping you'd reach out." We spoke for nearly an hour. I gave him everything. The telegram chats, the journal entries, the video leaks, even the court rulings and the audio files I'd gathered over months. "Why now?" he asked. "Because this isn't just about my wife," I said. "It's spreading. She's starting over. Using schools. Using other moms. She's hiding behind self-help words. But what she's doing is grooming influence." He didn't say anything for a long time. Then finally, "Let me tell your story, but not as a scandal. As a warning." I agreed. We picked a date. He said it would take about 2 weeks to prepare the piece. But I didn't know if I had 2 weeks. Because the next morning, there was a new envelope on my porch. Inside wasn't a letter. It was a photo. A candid shot of me walking Lily and Grace to the car. I stared at that photo for almost a full minute. It wasn't grainy. It wasn't taken from a distance. It was clear, close, and timed just right. Me unlocking the car. Lily climbing in. Grace holding my hand. Someone had been feet away from us. Watching. Documenting. Marking their next move. My first instinct was to check the cameras, but there was nothing. The footage had gaps. Short, choppy frames missing like someone had jammed the signal. Whether it was interference or something more deliberate, I didn't know. But I knew one thing. Emma wasn't just trying to influence from a distance anymore. She was getting close again. I called my lawyer. Told him everything. The photo. The toy message. The recess incident. He sighed hard through the line. "This isn't family court anymore," he said. "This is stalking. You need to file a police report." And I did. It felt surreal, sitting at the precinct, handing over a manila folder filled with documents, video timestamps, even the Bluetooth message from the bear. One of the officers raised an eyebrow. "She recorded a message in a child's toy?" "Without my knowledge," I said. and planted it in my home. He shook his head. You've got a real one here. They took everything seriously. Opened a case file. Promised to alert patrol units near the school and my home. It should have made me feel safe. But it didn't. Because even if Emma disappeared tomorrow, the damage was already in motion. The girls were asking more questions. Grace had started mimicking some of the phrases Emma used. Power voice. Heart choices. Things no 6-year-old should be saying without understanding what they meant. I sat them down that night, gently, and told them the truth. Mommy loves you. I love you. But right now, Mommy's going through something that makes it hard for her to make safe choices. That's why Daddy makes the rules for now. They listened. Quiet. Confused. But they nodded. I didn't sleep much that night. And then the article dropped. It was titled, Inside the Quiet Rebellion. How a Suburban Father Fought Back Against a Hidden Movement. It didn't just tell my story. It told the story. The tactics. The screenshots. The grooming. The manipulation. Testimonies from other husbands who had watched their marriages dissolve under the same exact script. It laid out how Vanessa's ideology had bled into real families, real custody battles, and now into schools. Emma wasn't named directly, but readers knew. She knew. And her phone lit up like wildfire. How do I know? Because Rachel texted me. She's melting down, saying she's being targeted, that she's going to expose you next. Let her. Because the truth was already out. Parents started whispering at the school drop-offs. Teachers kept a closer eye on who stood at the gate. The principal sent out a notice banning all unsanctioned gifts, flyers, and spiritual tools from being distributed on campus. And Emma vanished again. No more porch letters. No more flyers. No more meditation invites or weird symbols left in backpacks. Just silence. I'd be lying if I said it felt like a victory. It didn't. It felt like surviving something that could still grow back if you stopped watching it. But for now, I had my daughters. I had the truth. I had my name cleared. And Emma? She had a legacy made of ashes and screenshots. People ask me now, how did you keep it together through all of that? And the truth is, I didn't. I shattered. Quietly. Bit by bit. In the dark. When no one was looking. But I put myself back together, not because I wanted revenge, but because 2 little girls needed someone who wouldn't run, wouldn't lie, wouldn't promise freedom and deliver confusion. They needed a father. And I never needed a movement to remind me how to be one.